She was silenced during a live broadcast, humiliated in front of the world. But the next 5 minutes would rewrite her career and end someone else's. The newsroom hummed with its usual late afternoon rush, but beneath the warm, golden light flooding through the high windows, something felt off. Like a chord slightly out of tune, Riley Thompson stood near the edge of the studio floor, adjusting the mic clipped to her blazer, steadying her breath. She was a sharp, composed Blackfield reporter known for uncovering stories others were too afraid to touch, and today's piece was the most delicate one yet. She scanned the room. A producer leaned in close to another, whispering with a stiffness that didn't match their usual pre-show banter. One of the overhead lights flickered, buzzing faintly, as if anxious itself. Across the room, a camera operator, normally cheerful, chatty, avoided her gaze entirely, pretending to study his equipment with unusual intensity. Riley felt a tightening in her chest, a subtle warning she couldn't name. She had sensed this shift for weeks. Small things at first, like emails sent late at night, closed-door meetings that stopped the moment she approached, and hushed conversations that paused when she entered the room. Now, as she stood moments away from going live, those uneasy pieces seemed to click into place, forming a quiet storm gathering just beyond her line of sight. Something was brewing, and whatever it was coming straight toward her. The red light above the camera blinked on, and Riley slipped seamlessly into her professional calm. Her voice carried across the studio, steady, confident, as she began unveiling her investigation into the quiet misuse of city funds. On the monitor before her, graphics appeared exactly as rehearsed, but the air felt tight, as if the room itself was holding its breath. Early reports indicate that... "Thank you, Riley." Anchor Lisa Marlowe's voice sliced through the broadcast like a blade wrapped in satin. Her smile was blindingly bright, almost theatrical, but her eyes flickered with something sharp and irritated. She leaned forward at the desk, reclaiming the camera's attention with practiced grace. Riley froze for a fraction of a second, the interruption hitting her like a sudden gust of cold air. She recovered quickly, keeping her expression neutral, but inside, confusion rippled through her. That wasn't a timing cue. That wasn't accidental. She waited, expecting Lisa to toss the segment back. Protocol demanded it. But instead, Lisa continued talking, her words a polished diversion from the very story Riley had been assigned to break. Then, in Riley's earpiece, a voice she didn't recognize muttered low and urgent, "Cut her off." Her stomach tightened. It wasn't just a rude interruption, someone didn't want her speaking. Riley inhaled quietly, willing her voice to remain steady as the segment was tossed, reluctantly, back in her direction. She resumed her report with poised precision, but she barely got through her next sentence before Lisa cut in again, laughter tinkling unnaturally. "Well, Riley certainly has strong opinions today," Lisa joked, her tone dipped in condescension, disguised as charm. "Let's hope the numbers back her up this time." A few people chuckled, but it was the kind of nervous laughter that evaporated quickly, leaving a heavier silence in its wake. Even the interns, usually too stressed to notice anything beyond their own duties, exchanged uneasy glances. Something about Lisa's tone, the timing, the edge, it was unmistakable. This wasn't innocent teasing. It was calculated. Riley felt a tremor run through her hands, barely noticeable but impossible to ignore. She curled her fingers together behind the desk. Grounding herself bias wasn't new to her. But this was bold, public, and happening live. Still, she kept going. Her voice remained even. Her words' deliberate professionalism was her armor, and she wore it tightly. Then her phone buzzed against the table. A message from Jonah in investigative. "Check your inbox now." Her pulse quickened. Whatever was happening wasn't random. It was orchestrated, and it was closing in. The moment the segment cut to commercial, the studio exhaled in an awkward, fragmented silence. Producers avoided her eyes as they scattered in different directions, pretending to be busy with cables, scripts, anything but her. Riley stepped aside from the cameras, her heart pounding with a mixture of anger and unease. Her phone buzzed again. She unlocked it, expecting another message from Jonah instead. An unread email sat at the top of her inbox. No sender name, no signature, just a single chilling subject line: "Stop." Riley opened it. "They don't want you finishing that story. It exposes someone important." The words felt like a punch. Her breath caught in her throat as the implications sank in. Someone inside the building, someone with access, was warning her. But warning her about who? Her eyes drifted across the studio to Lisa, who was laughing with the producer, her smile just a little too tight, her posture too strained. Was Lisa acting out of personal spite? Or was she obeying instructions she couldn't refuse? Riley's fingers tightened around her phone. She had worked too hard, sacrificed too much to let her story be buried by fear or politics. She straightened her shoulders. No more guessing. No more being kept in the dark. It was time to confront whatever, or whoever, was pulling the strings. Riley pushed open the heavy door to the control room, her footsteps soft but determined against the polished floor. The room, usually buzzing with chatter and frantic cue calling, had fallen into a tense, unnatural quiet. The station director stood rigid, arms crossed, while two board members hovered beside him. All of them were gathered around a monitor replaying the broadcast. Specifically, the moment Lisa cut Riley off, Lisa was there too. Her face had drained of its usual confident glow, replaced by a tight, uncomfortable stiffness. She glanced up when Riley walked in, but her eyes darted away just as quickly, guilt, or fear, flickering in them. Before Riley could speak, the door swung open behind her. A woman in a navy suit stepped in, her ID badge catching the overhead light. The corporate compliance officer. Everyone straightened instinctively. "We received a complaint," she announced, her voice calm but razor-sharp. "Not about Riley, about you, Lisa." The words hit the room like a dropped anchor. Lisa's breath hitched. The officer continued. "Riley's investigation uncovered financial misconduct linked to one of our key sponsors. A sponsor with personal ties to you, Lisa. Your interruptions were an attempt to obstruct the report." The air thickened. Even the director looked stunned. Within moments, the decision was made. Lisa's headset was removed, her badge taken. "Effective immediately, you're suspended." Riley stood still, heart pounding, shocked, relieved, and suddenly aware that the ground beneath the newsroom had shifted. The control room was still vibrating with shock when the door burst open again. A young producer, breathless, cheeks flushed, hurried inside. "We need someone to fill the anchor seat for the next hour," she said, scanning the room desperately. For a heartbeat, no one spoke. Then, as if guided by an unspoken current, every gaze shifted toward Riley. She blinked, stunned. The idea seemed almost unreal, unthinkable just 30 minutes earlier, but the weight of the moment settled over her slowly, like a cloak she hadn't expected, but suddenly felt meant to wear. The director gave her a single, steady nod. "Riley, take the chair." Her pulse quickened as she followed the producer out of the control room. The newsroom watched her pass, cautious eyes softening into admiration, uncertainty melting into something like pride. She reached the studio desk, the anchor chair gleaming beneath the warm lights. Riley lowered herself into it, grounding her hands against the smooth surface, feeling the hum of its history beneath her palms. She exhaled, slow and sure she was ready. Around her, the crew moved with renewed purpose. A few soft claps rippled through the studio, small, supportive, but deeply felt. Even the interns smiled. The countdown began. 5, 4, 3. Riley lifted her chin, dignity radiating from her like a quiet flame. This time, no one would cut her off. As the cameras rolled and Riley delivered the hour's top stories with calm, commanding clarity, a quiet shift settled over the newsroom, one that went deeper than a simple change in who occupied the anchor chair. It was the unmistakable weight of truth writing itself. When the broadcast ended, the studio lights dimmed softly, leaving Riley bathed in a warm afterglow. She sat still for a moment, letting the reality settle in. Not the promotion, not even the vindication, but the certainty that what she had long suspected was finally visible to everyone else. The glances from her colleagues were different now. Respectful, humbled, aware. Nearby, the empty anchor desk where Lisa once sat felt like a reminder carved into the room. Power, when wielded with arrogance, had crumbled in minutes. Riley hadn't needed to raise her voice or strike back. She had simply stood her ground, steady, honest, unshaken. True integrity, she realized, wasn't shown in titles or positions. It revealed itself in the quiet moments, how one treats those with less authority, how one responds when no one is clapping, how one moves forward despite doors slamming in their face, and injustice, no matter how carefully hidden, always frayed at the edges until it unraveled completely. As Riley left the studio, her steps confident, her voice still echoing in the air, one truth rang clear. Sometimes the person silenced today becomes the voice the world listens to tomorrow.